So, na ni'n ymlaen, Leanne.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay, nice to see weld chi. Lovely to see so many people here interested in some of the theoretical ideas behind where we're going on the Independent project. I want to start by talking about the book by Grace Blakely called Vulture Capitalism. Some of you might have heard about that, where Grace shows the how large corporate businesses work hand in glove with governments to ensure that it's capital and not labour that dominates our global economy. And we all know, don't we, that capitalism is incompatible with protection of our planet. We can't do the both. And in her book, Grace provides examples of the planning that takes place between corporate entities and governments, and the relationships between neoliberal politicians, and it makes for some seriously depressing reading. But importantly, she also provides us with some sources of hope. She gives us examples from all over the world where groups of people are working together to build alternatives to capitalism. And one of those examples is here in Cymru, Blaenau Ffestiniog. She shows how the development of Cwmni Bro Ffestiniog, a social enterprise network, is thriving around the small town of Blaenau Ffestiniog. Sel Williams, one of the founders of Cwmni Bro Ffestiniog, went on to develop the network to cover the whole of Gwynedd. What do all these businesses have in common? Well, they're all building assets for their communities. They are buying or building pubs, shops, accommodation, energy generators, green spaces, libraries, land, former schools, leisure facilities, and some of those they can turn into future income generators. And of course, as they're all in Gwynedd, they operate largely through the medium of Welsh as well. Now, I work in community energy, and I know of countless of examples of communities that are able to reinvest the profits that they've made from, say, their wind turbine or their hydro generators, and they plough that back into energy efficiency schemes, anti-poverty schemes, biodiversity initiatives, and so on, different ways to improve the local economy. We're working for political change to enable local trading of energy, which would mean that people can buy what's produced locally at a cheaper price because they could manage their demand and avoid the transmission costs of all that electricity going through the grid. So local trading would also reduce the amount we have to reinvest in grid reinforcement. And of course, all that extra spending on the national grid will be reflected in our bills later on. Local trading will also enable the expansion of community energy, and for me that's the exciting bit, because if every community could do what has been done in Bethesda, we could have a country full of self-sufficient, income-generating and carbon-cutting communities with some level of ownership over the means of production. They would be providing employment, they would be upskilling local people, and because the community owns the assets that provide them with a long-term income, they have a way of thinking that comes with that, an independent way of thinking. They know that they're locking the profits back into the local community at every opportunity, and they are building that community, and they take pride that they are free to make decisions about that community because they've got the independent income to do that. It's real democracy. Sel Williams calls this Cymunedoli. That's the name given to the network of community businesses which are all focused on ownership and community building in Gwynedd. And Sel's vision is for Cymunedoli to cover the whole of Cymru, and we can help him do that, I think. It's not a network of voluntary organisations, it's a network of community businesses, people interested in asset ownership and what comes with that. Central to the thinking is Raymond Williams' concept of real independence. It's the mindset shift that comes when you can end your dependence on others. Cymunedoli can give us real independence. It can give us a set of goals to aim for in communities to give hope, thereby providing an alternative to the simplistic solutions offered by the far right, who are winning people over in large numbers at the moment, especially in places like the valleys. And if all of those communities can speak with one voice, then Cymunedoli has real power. I've been inspired by the people and the thinking behind Cymunedoli. It fits with the political projects that I've been championing for more than 2 decades. And it helps us change the mindsets towards independence in our communities. It helps us take control of the means of production, which is ultimately what gives us an agency and ends our independence. Our dependence, sorry. We can all help to create the conditions where Cymunedoli can thrive. We've got strong foundations on which to build it with our strong communities and our history of cooperation and fighting capitalism. Cymunedoli is an idea that has come at the perfect time, and I'm sure it's something we will all be hearing a lot more about in the coming months and years. Diolch yn fawr.
Ymlaen i'r siaradwr nesaf. We'll go on to the next speaker when we get to the end. I'll ask everyone to maybe, if we've got time, we'll go through some questions. So I'm going to show chydig o gwestiynau ar y diwedd. Radha, would you like to go next? Yeah?
Hello. Prynawn pawb, diolch am dod I gwrando arna I. My name is Radha Nair-Roberts, and as you can see, I'm in a wheelchair, but I was able-bodied most of my life until I was struck down by multiple sclerosis in 2015, and now I use a wheelchair. I just want you all to know that I've discovered so much since becoming disabled about how unequal our society is, and my hope is that independence gives us an opportunity to build a better society. It has to be better than the unequal UK. I'm really upset by the inequality in the UK society, which means that marginalised groups haven't got a chance to live a high standard of life. Sorry. I first noticed inequality when I became disabled and I could no longer keep fit in the community. Public facilities were available for everyone to keep fit and exercise, but not for severely disabled people like me. So what we did was that we banded together with other disabled people and their supporters, and we decided to do something about it. So in 2017, we founded Exercise for All, which is a community association that campaigns for better access to fitness and exercise in the community for disabled people. And it started off really well. We did a lot of research about leisure centres, and we wrote a submission to the Welsh Government just talking about how this needs to change. And by working with Better, the not-for-profit company, allegedly, that runs leisure centres in Cardiff, we were able to convince them to install lots of disabled-friendly equipment, and we even got them to do a special reduced gym membership for disabled people so that they could exercise with their carers in all the leisure centres that we talked to, that were run by Better in Cardiff. So we had lots of success and we were very optimistic. And you know, this was despite austerity and also the Welsh Government sort of dragging its heels, unwilling to commit to anything. Nothing's changed, the same thing today. But then the pandemic struck, and we went from feeling very optimistic and doing a lot of stuff to suddenly, as disabled people, finding that we were bearing the brunt of the pandemic. Basically, we had health vulnerability, which meant we had to shield, and we also saw all the services that we needed to live suddenly dry up overnight. And today, we're told that we're post-pandemic, but COVID is still with us, and the services that disabled people rely on have not recovered. So life is just getting worse and worse. And it's not just for disabled people. it's for anyone who's marginalised. You know, the very poor, the very old, the very young, they all are suffering the brunt of all the crises that the UK has been through. It's crisis after crisis. At first it was COVID, then it was, at first it was Brexit, then it was COVID, and then various wars, and every time a crisis happens, the provision for marginalised groups just gets cut down and cut down. So at this stage, basically, the Equalities Act was written in 2010, and it's just been degraded. The UK Equalities Act has been degraded to nearly nothing. And it's as if UK governments successively use these crises as an excuse to cut public spending and to cut services that they provide. And you know, we are people too, and no disabled person is an island, because I have a family, I have friends. Well, I had more friends before the pandemic, and you know, I'm a member of society, and I should be hidden away. We should build back better after independence, and maybe come up with a Welsh Equality Act that actually meant something, that had teeth, and that was updated with people's needs. I mean, Scandinavian countries show us how it's done. So we need to follow them more than unequal UK society. I think that's all I wanted to say. Diolch yn fawr am y rando, and I look forward to having conversations with all of you. Last thing I wanted to say is that if you're able-bodied, it's easy to just disregard disability, but we all end up disabled at some point. We'll all suffer illness and impairment. So, you know, start now to help people who are suffering impairments and illness, and in the knowledge that that's going to be you one day.
So my name's Keira, and diolch and diolch to Leanne Wood and Colin for organising. I'm really honoured to be speaking on the community and the panellists. But yeah, I work in the Plaid Cymru Senedd group team as a researcher where I cover the economy. So I was going to speak on skills a bit today. Luke Fletcher's going to be announcing the start of an economy strategy. We've been working on his speeches after this if you want to see it. And I've written a chapter on skills strategy within that. I was going to sort of talk through some of that with you. So basically, coming to 2026, when Plaid Cymru's in government, whatever form that looks like, one of the few levers on the economy, one of the only levers we have on the economy is skills, and we can grow our economy and develop our economy through the people power we have here, even if we don't have the financial levers that we need. Currently, there's a huge skills gap in Wales. 50% of businesses face a skills gap in 2024 in Wales, absolutely huge. FSB Wales found that 80% of small businesses couldn't recruit as they needed to in 2022. So currently we're not feeding the business and the economy we need with the people power, which means we're hindering our economic development, which means we can't, obviously I'd have independence tomorrow if I could, and I assume a lot of people here will be the same, but we need to bring people with us, and part of that is showing them, you know, we are rich enough and our economy is strong enough, and we can feed into that through skills, and we're not doing that, and that's something we need to do to get people on board with independence. But it's also an issue with net zero. We've got Welsh Government targets to reach net zero. It's really important. It's one of the most pressing issues facing my generation, and some of the young people are worried about it. We've got huge renewable energy opportunity in Wales, but yeah, again, like 50% of businesses in Wales, we're uncertain how to use green technologies, so we're not giving people the skills they need to achieve this. We're falling behind other countries. Scotland is miles ahead of us, and that means investment will go there, the people power will go there, the skills will go there. We're losing out. Like, we need to take action today on net zero. And we're going to be dependent. We're going to be dependent on outsourcing. We're going to be dependent on foreign companies coming into Wales. We're not going to grow it from domestic businesses in net zero. We need a just transition. You look at Tata and stuff like that. For our workers, we have to grow it in Wales and have it Welsh owned and powered by the skills we have here. As well, you look at the cost of living crisis we've had recently with rising fuel prices. We do not want to be dependent on other countries' renewable energy and whatever they choose for us to have to pay it. We're just susceptible to that. We already have our people struggling. We need to not be outsourcing or dependent on foreign companies. We've been left behind in other industrial revolutions, and we cannot let it happen to us again. We have to make sure we're at the forefront of this, and that's what I think is one of the key things we need to do in 2026. And we see the skills gap as well in some of our core services. Teaching, we don't have enough teachers, Welsh language teachers. How do we grow the language? How do we have more and more schools in Wales teaching Welsh when we don't have even enough physics teachers per Welsh school in Wales? Like, we're going to lose it unless we train people into it. Nurses as well. There seems like there's no workforce planning happening. There's no skills strategy in Welsh Government. And this, I'm not going to steal his idea, this is Luke Fletcher's idea, but what we want to see is a skills audit. So it would be, look, what are we supplying in our colleges? What are we teaching? What qualifications do we have? What do businesses want? What skills do they need? And experts as well in green industries. And like measure what we are providing and what people need, and align what courses we're offering to what the economy needs. It's so simple. And Wales is small enough where we could do that on a scale. We could do it annually or every 2 years and look at what skills we actually need. And I think part of it is careers advice as well. In my school, the only careers advice we ever had was an army recruiter who came in. Why don't we have like small businesses coming in, showing what jobs we have to offer in the area? Like, why don't we have inspirational, like diverse people who are running their own businesses, or what? Like people locally coming in. It just isn't there. And I think when I was writing the skills strategy, I had this like idea of you can't be what you can't see. So like if all you see is an army recruiter coming in and you're like a working class young man, that's all, you don't know anything else. But show us inspirational people, show us that it's there. And finally, it's not just about feeding the economy. Skills are actually about social justice. It lifts people out of poverty when you give them the skills they need to thrive. Also, it's about pursuing something you enjoy and having meaningful, rewarding work that you've chosen to do, not being pushed into, and we're not providing that to our young people right now. We have, out of all the UK nations, the most people not in education, employment or training. We have a young person guarantee. Where's that guarantee? They're not guaranteed anything, they're suffering. So, and also I think that leads to the demographic change we see in Wales. People not only live in rural areas come to Cardiff. Well, I grew up in Swansea. I've left Swansea. There was no opportunity there for me to pursue politics and economics really, and I've come to Cardiff. But also people leaving Wales as well and moving to England or anywhere else. And I think if we actually give people the skills they need to support the economy here, we won't be looking at that problem. I thought that was really ranty, but yeah, that's my
That's fantastic.
Diolch am siarad am ymweliad Cymraeg. Wel, diolch i bawb. Dwi'n mynd i darllen beth wedi sgwennu yma i rannu gyda chi. Ac wedyn, os oes yma gwestiwn, neu derbio, neu mynd yn fwy manylion. Wel, mae'n bleser cael siarad heddi am rôl y Gymraeg ar un dyfodol fel cenedl. Wrth edrych ymlaen at Gymru annibynnol, rhaid i ni dynnu gwersi o'r gorffennol a gweld sut gallwn ni adeiladu sylfaeni a osodwyd gan mamau ac ar tadau yn cenedl. Am ganrifoedd roedd y Gymraeg yn rhan anatod o'n hunaniaeth ac yn diwylliant, ond roedd hefyd yn dioddef o ormes gan ieithoedd eraill. Gwelwn yn glir o'n hanes fod y Gymraeg wedi goroesi cyfnodau o erledigaeth ac imperialaeth ieithyddol. Ond mae un werth allweddol i'w cymryd o hynny. bod iaith yn gryfder. Ond dim ond os ydym ni'n ei defnyddio ac yn ei cofleidio yn ein bywyd bob dydd. Mae'r Gymraeg yn allweddol i adeiladu dyfodol lle mae ein diwylliant, ein gwerthoedd a'r cymunedau yn ffynnu. Nid iaith trafodaeth yn unig ydyw, ond iaith fyw, iaith bresennol a'r dyfodol. Mae hi'n hanfodol ei fod yn barhaol. Mae hi'n hanfodol ein bod yn barhau i ehangu i defnydd mewn bob agwedd o'n fywyd cyhoeddus, addysg, busnes, technoleg a cyfryngau, mwyn gwneud yn siŵr nad yw'r iaith yn cael ei gosod yn ail yn gymdeithas fodern. Mae'n bwysig sylweddoli bod gan y Gymraeg potensial enfawr fel sylfaen i gydlyniant gymdeithasol. Yn hytrach na bod yn iaith i rai dethol, gallwn ni sicrhau bod yn iaith sy'n un o bawb yng Nghymru. Mae iaith yn ffordd o gysylltu bobl o wahanol gyfyndiroedd a rhanbarthau. Yn bersonol fel unigolyn a ddaeth i Gymru fel ffoadur, roedd wedi gweld fy uniongyrchol yn sut mae dysgu Gymraeg yn agor drysau i gymunedau a'i diwylliant. Drwy'r Gymraeg, roedd wedi cael y cyfle i deimlo yn rhan o'r gymdeithas ac i gyfrannu at bywyd y wlad mewn ffyrdd na fyddai wedi bod yn bosibl fel arall. Mae hyn yn dangos bod y Gymraeg yn wirioneddol agored i bawb, gan gynnig llwybr i unrhyw un deimlo yn gysylltiedig â Chymru, wnaeth beth fwy cefndir. Felly, trwy roi y Gymraeg yn ganolog i'n bywydau bob dydd, rydym yn anfon neges bwerus am bwyd ydym ni fel cenedl. Felly, mwyn sicrhau dyfodol lle mae'r Gymraeg yn ffynnu, mae'n rhaid i ni hefyd edrych ar y byd tu hwnt i'n ffiniau. Wrth i Gymru dod yn annibynnol, gallwn defnyddio'r Gymraeg fel rhan o'n hunaniaeth rhangwladol gan dangos i'r byd fod Cymru yn genedl sydd â ffach at ei iaith a'i diwylliant, drwy meithrin partneriaethau newid gyda gwledydd eraill sy'n rannu yr un gwerthoedd. Wrth gwrs, nid yw'r daith hwn yn hawdd. Mae heriau o'n blaenau. Yn benodol, mae'r ffaith bod dim ond 80% o blant yn gadael yr ysgol heb allu siarad Gymraeg yn rhugl yn her mawr. Ac mae diffyg tai fforddiadwy yn golygu bod llawer o bobl ifanc yn cael ei gorfodi i symud i ffwrdd o'i cymunedau. Hefyd, mae angen i ni gynyddu personoldeb y Gymraeg ar-lein a sicrhau bod yn cael ei defnyddio ar lwyfannau digidol modern, lle mae cymaint o'n bywydau yn digwydd erbyn hyn. Diolch yn fawr iawn am eich amser a gadewch i ni weithio gyda'n gilydd i sicrhau dyfodol lle mae'r iaith Gymraeg yn ffynnu, nid dim ond fel rhan o'r gorffennol ond fel rhan greiddiol o'n dyfodol annibynnol. Diolch yn fawr.
Beca Roberts, Leanne Wood.
Iawn. Sori, mae gennym fi anwyd, so rhywun o'r dyna pan mae Elin yn symud i ffwrdd. Ia, Beca Roberts yn rhywun gynghori sir yn Gwynedd efo Elin. Dwi'n 31 oed, mae'n cneithar i Nancy sydd yn 14 yn dweud bod hynna'n really ancient. Ond lwcus i fi mewn Plaid Cymru, neu bod fi'n really ifanc. So, yn iawn ni siarad dipyn bach amdan hynny. A sut ti'n dod â mwy o bobl ifanc i fewn i gwleidyddiaeth. So ie, oedd etholiad 2021 yn droiad cornel enfawr i ni yma yn Cymru. Pobl ifanc 16 ac 17 mlwydd oed yn cael pleidleisio fo tro cyntaf. A i nifer o'n ni, oedd hyn yn gam gwych yn y ffordd cywir ac i grymuso pobl ifanc i ddefnyddio eu llais yn y wlad. Ond yn ffodus, fel bob tro, mi o'na garfan o bobl oedd yn teimlo fel bod rhoi pleidlais i bobl ifanc yn beth ffôl, a bod pobl ifanc ddim yn gwybod digon am wleidyddiaeth i cael gwneud penderfyniad mor bwysig. A dwi bob tro wedi ffeindio hwnna'n ddadl mor od. Beth sydd yn gwneud rhywun sydd yn 17 mlwydd oed ac 11 mis yn llai wybodus na rhywun sydd yn 18 oed. Beth sydd wedi digwydd yn y mis yna i wneud un person yn mwy ddilys i bleidleisio na'r llall. Ond yn anffodus, mae yna actually miloedd o bobl ar draws Cymru sydd ddim yn gwybod digon amdan gwleidyddiaeth. Dim ots faint oed ydych chi. A 2 blynedd yn ôl, mi fyswn ni wedi dweud bod fi'n un o heina hefyd. Actually, weithiau dwi'n teimlo bod fi dal yn rhywun sydd yn gwybod digon amdan gwleidyddiaeth. A dim trwy tynnu pleidlais i ffwrdd o'r pobl yma, mae atab y broblem yna. Yn hytrach, ddylswn ni fod yn buddsoddi amser mewn dysgu pobl am wleidyddiaeth a democracy a gwneud hynny o'r dechrau un fel rhan gorfodol o'r cwricwlwm. Debyg bod nifer o'n chi'n gwybod erbyn hyn bod na gyricwlwm newydd wedi bod yn cael ei gyflwyno ar draws Cymru, ac un o'r 4 pwrpas y cwricwlwm yna ydy i annog bobl ifanc i fod yn ddinasyddion egwyddorol, gwybodus yng Nghymru a'r byd. Ond sut mae disgwyl i bobl fod yn ddinasyddion egwyddorol a gwybodus os dydyn ni ddim yn rhoi sylfaen cadarn sydd yn cefnogi'r dealltwriaeth yna? Dwi'n teimlo fel bod ni'n gadael pobl i lawr trwy anwybyddu pwysigrwydd addysg gwleidyddol ac yn creu cymdeithas lle mae dim ond y breintiedig sydd yn derbyn dealltwriaeth o democracy. Dychmygwch Cymru lle mae person ifanc yn gadael ysgol ac yn deall sut mae'r Llywodraeth yn gweithio, be ydy hawliau nhw a sut gall pleidlais nhw siapio y dyfodol. A byd lle mae pawb yn deall sut mae'r gwleidyddiaeth yn effeithio bopeth o amgylchedd i addysg i'r gwasanaeth bws lleol. Mae dysgu am democratiaeth yn gynnar yn creu cyfranogwyr gydol oes. Mae person ifanc yna yn tyfu fyny i fod yn oedolyn, a bydd yr oedolyn yna yn mwy debygol i bleidleisio, mwy debygol i ymgysylltu efo cymuned nhw, a llai tebygol o teimlo bod y system yn cael nhw allan. Pan da ni'n creu dinasyddion gwybodus, da ni'n cryfhau sylfaeni yn democratiaeth. Yng nghred i ydy bydd y math yma o'r addysg gwleidyddol yn gwneud gwahaniaeth mawr i'r ymgyrch annibyniaeth yma yng Nghymru. A hynny achos, y mwyaf o wybodaeth ydych chi'n rhoi i bobl ifanc, y mwyaf bydd nhw'n cwestiynu y status quo ac yn mynnu dyfodol newydd. Mae rhoi'r gwybodaeth iawn i bobl yn annog nhw i wneud penderfyniadau wedi seilio'r ffeithiau, yn hytrach na penderfyniadau wedi i wneud trwy gamwybodaeth ac ofyn. Felly, os ydyn ni eisiau Cymru gry annibynnol, mae angen cenhedlaeth sy'n gwybod sut i cyrraedd y nod yna. Mae dysgu am wleidyddiaeth yn yr ysgol yn fwy na jyst adio pwnc newydd i fewn i'r diwrnod. Mae o'n rhaid y pŵar i bobl ifanc. Dyma ydy sut mae adeiladu Cymru lle mae llais pawb yn cyfri, a lle mae pobl ifanc yn teimlo bod nhw'n berthyn i'r broses democrataidd. Felly mae'n hen bryd i bawb stopio siarad am os ydy pobl ifanc yn gwybod digon am wleidyddiaeth a dechrau rhoi offer yna iddyn nhw i gwybod mwy.